Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to the Hindu analysis. We'll be discussing 5 to 6 articles out of the Hindu newspaper, but these articles are actually not of the physical newspaper itself, but from the website. On account of Ganesh Chaturthi, today there was no physical newspaper across India from the Hindu. However, what we've done is we picked up important topics which were there on the website and we'll discuss them because it is equally important that your this day, the 28th of August, should not go in vain and you can still cover some form of current affairs. So most of you would not have found your Hindu newspaper today because there was no physical newspaper which was published by the Hindu. However, if you look at the topics which I've showed you, I have mentioned them on the website and we will discuss them in that context only. Good morning to all of you. Now, the 19,999 offer with 12 months extension is right now on, and you have Unacademy CSE Assure Programme also, which is running as of right now. 2 years and above subscription, you get CSE Assure and also 19,999 plus 12 months. You have to use the code IAS English to get the maximum benefit possible. The PPT of this session will be available in my Telegram channel. Okay. So, these are the 5 topics which made sense, which are relevant for you for the examination. As I said, there is no newspaper. So, all of these topics are picked up from the website. For example, first we'll talk about how there's a secondary challenge, there's a report which has come through from the Financial Ministry. Then we'll talk about the Biofoundry Network concept which has come through just yesterday. Then we'll talk about a health crisis which is brewing up in Kerala. Then we'll talk about a controversial but very interesting appointment to the Supreme Court. And we'll end with science and technology, which is SpaceX finally being able to use the what is called Falcon Heavy the way it should be. So these topics, again, I am reiterating this multiple times, is not from the newspaper. There was no editorial. There's no concept of FAQ or the concept of text and context today because the newspaper itself does not exist because the Hindu office was on leave yesterday. So therefore, no newspaper today. Now, if everybody is here, everybody is comfortable, we'll start. As always, I'll give you the larger understanding first, then the details, and thereafter we'll go into the revision cycles which we do so that you don't really have to revise after the session. You can just revise in this session itself and we are sorted. Okay. Now, the first topic is a finance ministry report which is taking into account what Trump has been doing for the past 2 to 3 weeks. We can take rather for the past 3 months, the way he has been weaponizing tariff. Now, we are talking about how there will be a secondary and tertiary effect of the tariffs 50% which has been pushed through with regards to now just before entering this session there was a statement which came from a US official that the Russia-Ukraine war has been sustained. It is being sustained just because India is taking oil from Russia, which is again just totally dumbfounded because China and the EU is taking significant amount of oil and natural gas from them. It is not us, but them in that regard. But the idea is very simple. The Ministry of Finance is now taking into consideration because on Wednesday, the 50% tariff, which was initially 25%, this was a standard tariff which he has pushed through, but now he has added 25% more because of the Russian connection, and therefore this 50% tariff is going to be significant and is going to impact the trade between India and the US. Now, what the report says is we really don't need to worry about, and as we can say right now, primary effect is going to be very, very slow to come through, but the secondary and tertiary effect, which is there will be a rippling effect in the trade with the US. Maybe the primary may not affect us that much, but the secondary and the tertiary waves are going to be problematic. Now, for you as a UPSC aspirant, what is important is what are the sectors which are going to get impacted because of this trade in that regard. Now, if you look at it, because of this 50%, the following sectors are going to be impacted in the long run, be it secondary, tertiary or primary in that regard. First is going to be textile and cloth, then gemstone and jewelries, then shrimp, leather, footwear, animal products, chemicals, and electrical and mechanical machinery. Now, in this, textile is the biggest for us in that regard because it is a very important sector for India exporting to the US in that regard. Then also gems and jewelries. And last, this chemicals, electrical and mechanical machinery. These four sectors are critical, are important, and the trade, which is close to $48 billion as of right now, will be impacted in the long run. So now let's decode what you have to learn here. You have to understand that there's a 50% tariff which Trump has pushed through. That is not something out of the box. We've been talking it in different ways for the past 1 month. Now, the secondary thing is which sectors will it impact? The sectors which are going to be impacted is this. You have to know this list. This will generally help you in writing good answers in the mains examination because you should know what are the sectors which are going to get affected, and now you can expect questions out of this in the prelims examination, wherein what are the areas in which India is exporting to the US in that regard, and therefore this relationship is going to get impacted. So what we have established till this point is, that there is a 50% tariff which is coming through, and that tariff is going to impact certain sectors. Now, what the Ministry of Finance is saying, that the primary effect may not be there that much, meaning immediately maybe we will not see anything. However, in the secondary and tertiary wave, meaning in the long run, we will obviously see something, you can say some form of impact on the relationship and at least on the, you can say, trade in that regard. There is no doubt whatsoever that in the long run, this relationship will become more soured because of this 50% tariff, and the trade is going to become more and more complicated. I think this much is not something out of the box. It is very standard understanding. This is where primary, meaning immediate effect, may not be there. Tertiary and secondary, which is the second and the third wave of impact, may be more. Are we all on the same page with regards to this? Are we? Yes, because I'm just loading the chats here. Are we all on the same page with regards to this? Which is, what is the context? The context is the Ministry of Finance is saying there will be impact, maybe not primary, but secondary and tertiary for sure. Very good, perfect. Now, in this case, a standard question, or you can say a question in the mains, is going to ask you, how can we mitigate it? Mitigation means, see, we obviously cannot bully Trump. Nobody can really, but he's a bully himself. The point is, we can't make the US change its policy. We are benefiting out of the relationship with the Russians. Because of Trump, India and China are coming together, be it in economic zone itself. There's more further de-escalation and convergences. So, if we are benefiting out of Russia and China as of right now, we now cannot just surrender to this aspect that the US is going to give us 50% and therefore we will do what the US is saying. That is not how Indian foreign policy has ever worked, and it should not work in that manner, that we basically go into the and agree to the whims and fancies of the US. So how do we mitigate it? As you said, what is the way forward here? How can we undercut it? And that is what the report is also talking about. And these points will be important for the examination. So the first way India is trying to balance is diversification. This is a word which we will now see in multiple news channels, in newspaper, in UPSC zones. Diversification of trade profile. That diversification of trade profile, India is already trying to do, for example, with the CETA, the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, which has happened with the UK. India is also trying to develop a free trade agreement with the EU, New Zealand, Chile, and Peru. But at the same point of time, it is trying to work out something with the US, which may not work out in the current environment in that way. However, the word is diversification, and your keyword is FTA, which is free trade agreements with either the neighbors of the US or with that continent itself. And at the same point of time, we have to make sure that whatever we lose, we gain out of this relationship. However, the report is saying, if this is the positive, the negative is, this will take a lot of time to show potentiality and also show any form of fruit or you can say bear any form of results in that regard. It is a long-term strategy. The US current tariff is going to impact the economy. There's no doubt about that. And that impact needs to be now mitigated. Because of the export sector taking a hit, it will have a, you can say, rippling effect into other sectors also. So diversification is a good option, but it is a long-term option. It is a long-term option. So therefore, we cannot fully rely on the concept of diversification. Second is what the report says. You all are making very good points, but what the report is giving you is important because that is Government of India line of thinking. The second is what the Prime Minister recently has announced, which is a next generation reform and reforms in lowering compliance cost, fostering a more enabling environment, MSMEs, micro and small manufacturing enterprises and medium enterprises and entrepreneurs. Basically, make ease of doing business better. So that if we cannot produce, if we cannot export to the US, at least we can bring those companies to India in that regard. And second, or that the third is GST reform. We all know that the GST Council is going to meet very soon, and there's a lot of, you can say, revision of slab which is going to happen. The idea is with GST reforms coming in the months, you can say at least 2 months from now, you will see essential commodities becoming cheaper. This is going to be important because that export-import is going to then impact our larger economy and we need to control it. So you need policy, you need, you can say, reinforcement with regards to the understanding of how we counter it. Now, let's do one thing. Let's bring all of this information, which this article or web, you can say web page has given us, and let's make a comprehensive understanding so that you can use it for a question in the examination. What has the article established? This is our first revision, right? The article has established that 50% tariff is now coming through. The primary impact may not be there, but secondary and tertiary impact is going to be there, which is in long run, there will be some form of impact for sure. That is a very logical statement, nothing out of the box in that regard. Now, in that context, how can we mitigate this? How can we mitigate this? The mitigation of this, we have to first use the word diversification. We have to then use the word, you can say, GST reform. We have to use the word next gen reforms, that too in ease of doing business, structural reforms in that regard, and adding to the points which you are making, which is policy driven interventions and all of you are making one point, which is that we need to find new direction in our trade. So FTAs, first and fifth point get connected together. FTAs may, I think boosting consumption comes from here. Boosting consumption comes from here, Rohan. So therefore, ease of doing business, this is boosting consumption. That is the implied understanding here. Boosting consumption. Does this make sense? If it does, the article is sorted for us. What we've done is, we've taken all the main points, we've added our own base knowledge, and we have created a certain structure which we can use for the examination. Understood? Okay. Therefore, rationally and transparently make RBI policy inclusive, holistic. Fiza, going towards the RBI would be more internal policy than external policy. But sure, you can use those points if you want to. Now, why have we discussed this structure? Why have we created this structure? Is because of this. India needs a long-term diversification of trade profile in order to counter the US onslaught. Discuss. This is a GS paper 2, even 3 if you go with what UPSC is doing nowadays. Either way, you have to know counterpoints. You have to know good points, which may help you in changing the perception of the examiner and also give you comprehensive points. Remember this point. This is a theme which will repeat tomorrow also, day after tomorrow also, and maybe till there is 50% tariff. Multiple articles are going to tell you how to counter it. We have taken 3 points out of it. Keep a repository now. Create a page in your, you can say, be it Excel sheet, be it Word file, or be it you can say a register which you have. Create a page in which how can India counter tariff from the US. Note down the points. 3 I have given you today. Tomorrow there will be an editorial which will talk about it again. There will be multiple points which will come through. If you can produce even half of the points in the examination, you will be sorted. That is how you make notes. This is a topic which is not complete in itself. It is evolving. An evolving topic needs notes which evolve over time and add more details. Right? I hope this is perfectly fine. A topic which is evolving as it is, it's a website-based article. So therefore, there's a very limited form of information in that. There will be more concreteness tomorrow in the articles which will come through. Now, let's talk about the second article. And this article is what is called as very heavy in terms. It says Jitendra Singh launches India's first National Biofoundry Network. Now, Krishna, there is no concept of prelims bites today, or smaller topics are not there because there was no newspaper itself. All of the topics I'm discussing with you is based out of the website. Because of Ganesh Chaturthi, there was no newspaper itself today. So the way we cover news today is in a different fashion altogether, because all of these news are evolving. Whatever was available in the morning till 9 o'clock, I have picked that up, important for the examination. Do understand this point, right? I've reiterated this in the starting. I'm doing it again. This is a you can say makeshift agreement, you can say arrangement which we do whenever there is a certain festival in that regard. Yeah. Now, in this topic, there are 3 words which we need to now understand. What is biotechnology? What is bioengineering and biomanufacturing? And what is biofoundry? Because the word here is biofoundry. This word needs to be qualified. In itself, this article has nothing. But because it has so many words which are relevant for the examination, we are now going to break it down into pieces so that you can understand and revise with me the static portion. This is pure science and technology. Biotechnology is taught generally. Now, first things first, what is biotechnology? This you should know generally, but it is the use of biological systems and living organisms to develop and create new products. It could be a living product. It could also be a man-made product in that regard. The word biotechnology itself is very self-explanatory. Biological technology, be it living organisms, be it plants, or be it some biological process used to modify a natural process or used to create an artificial process through which you get a certain product. One of the easiest examples of bioengineering, or what we call as biotechnology, is what you do on a day-to-day basis, and it is followed across the world, which is baking bread. Making bread is one of the easiest way in which biotechnology could be understood, because you add yeast into flour that leads to bread. That is a biotechnology, bioengineering based process. That's a very simple, straightforward process, but it is the easiest example. Making curd out of milk is a biotechnological driven process where a certain living organism was used in order to change the process from what it was. Milk would have gone bad, it now has become curd. So therefore, the biological process was modified through a living organism, be it a bacteria or in this case a yeast. Therefore, biotechnology is the concept of using biological processes to alter a living organism, to alter a process or create a new process to create new products. In the simplest way, it could be a single cell organism, but at a high level or at the level of what we call as bioengineering, it could be genetic modification of plants, it could be genetic modification of animals, and it could be done at an industrial scale. So The word is biological systems being used to create different products, alter processes, create new processes. Now, based on the biotechnological concept, the Minister of Science and Technology, Jitendra Singh, has argued we are developing what is called as National Biofoundry Network. Biofoundry Network is based on the idea that there will be 6 institutions which will help develop, enhance biomanufacturing and also create employment. Now, the problem is we now need to identify and clarify what is bioengineering. Biotechnology I explained. Now we need to understand what is called bioengineering, biofoundry, and the concept of bio-E3. So this is how we are going one step further down in creating more and more understanding. So what is biomanufacturing? Biomanufacturing is the use of biological system to engineer new products. Now this is basically biotechnology at a large scale, meaning when you're using living organisms and molecules and you can say systems to produce something at a large scale, it is called biomanufacturing. Now, biomanufacturing can be used in multiple zones. It is not specific to just one sector. It can be used in multiple zones. For example, in the pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical sectors, we have the best example, which is vaccines. Vaccines are a very good example of how we alter the genetic material of a certain bacteria, of a certain virus, or there is no genetic material in a virus, but yes, we alter biological processes in order, except for an RNA, where what is called is we alter the process itself in order to create new, you can say dead, inactivated forms, which we use as vaccines. Thereafter, we have food and beverages. For example, fermentation, altering the protein levels. A very good example is biofortification. Biofortification or fortification of food is done through biological processes. Then you have agriculture, where you have the biggest example and also the controversial, which is called GMO, genetically modified organism, in which you use CRISPR-Cas9 or certain genetic modification tools to make, for example, rice more drought resistant, make wheat more, you can say, water efficient, make both of them more pest resistant. So therefore, GMO is the best example of the concept of what is called as biomanufacturing. Then we also have industrial biomanufacturing, and we have bioplastics, biofabrication. See, today's buzzword is biomanufacturing because biotechnology plus manufacturing gives you certain biodegradable forms of plastics which was not possible previously, and therefore biomanufacturing is very important. So we have established what is biotechnology. We've established what is biomanufacturing. Basically, biotechnology at a large scale, at an industrial scale, and in different sectors, biomanufacturing. But still, one word remains, and we still have to clarify and qualify what is biofoundry. And this is where the concept of biofoundry comes through. Now, what is biofoundry? When biomanufacturing meets automation, meaning you're using AI, you're using machine learning, you're using very specialized factories in which you're designing, constructing, testing biological systems. That is called biofoundry. Basically, see, Devendra, it goes step by step. First word is what? First word is biotechnology. Biotechnology is biological systems used to alter certain processes or produce new products. Done at a large scale, it is biomanufacturing. Biomanufacturing can be used in different sectors in that regard. Now, if you are creating a large scale setup and you bring in automation, you bring in technology, then it is called biofoundry, which is designing, constructing, testing, everything is happening in the same, you can say, facility or laboratory. That is called biofoundry. Biofoundry is considered to be the future, where we have very big labs in which all the processes have come together, from testing to developing to constructing and to then also producing at a large scale. So, what have we understood here? We have understood what is biotech. We have understood what is biomanufacturing. And we have understood biofoundry. Anybody has any issue in these three words? This is using living organisms to create a new product. This is done at a large scale. This is done with technology and automation. These three words are basically gradationally going up. Anybody has any issue in these three words? Because then I will introduce to you a scheme and then what is the contours of that scheme. Anybody has any issues? No, sir? All on the same page with me? Yes? No issues. Very good. Now, Biofoundry. Now let me go back to the original thing. A Biofoundry network is being created in India, in which 6 institutions will come together to create a certain lab space in which biotechnology meets automation, meets manufacturing. That is the concept here. Now, all of this is being done under a certain scheme. And that scheme is called Bio E3. This is important for you for the prelims examination. Biotechnology for economy, environment and employment, Bio E3, for fostering high performance biomanufacturing. The idea is very simple. We need to now bring all sectors together. We need to have a policy intervention where bio-based products can be produced at a large scale for every sector, and this will help us in our bioeconomy, in our circular economy, and in making sure that we become net zero. Now, this Bio E3, where is it intervening? It is now trying to develop in marine, carbon capture, this is very important, which is carbon sequestration processes, climate resilient agriculture, biotherapeutics, which is medicine, proteins and functional foods, biopolymers, and biochemicals. So if you look at this, every sector, biotechnology, biomanufacturing, and biofoundry, the biggest word of all of them, it will do research and automation in this. Basically, this is the whole point of the article. There's a context to the article, Bio E3. Bio E3 further leads to this process of now Biofoundry Network being developed. National Biofoundry Network is going to be developed. 6 institutions coming together in all these sectors. Again, this is an article which is still in development. We may get more details further, but what I have done is I have got your static sorted. I hope when anybody uses these words, biotechnology, biomanufacturing, biofoundry, now you know what it means. And thereafter, any article which further develops this concept, there will be an editorial about this for sure. Then I will presume that you know it. Are we sorted with this article? Come on. Yes or no? I want everybody's consent here. Yes, sir, we are sorted. We understand this. 6th point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Polymers and enzymes, which is new forms of bioplastics, new form of material which can be produced. Right. Startup. Yes, Devendra, that can be done. Yes, that can be done. Now, as we speak, Kerala is going through a certain health crisis which is based on what is called as Amoebic or Amoebic meningoencephalitis. It is basically meningitis plus encephalitis, which is called Amoebic meningoencephalitis. It is also called PAM. It's called PAM, primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, which is meningitis plus encephalitis bringing together. It's called PAM. I will use the word PAM from this point forward. The idea is what last slide you wanted to see is this. This is the sector. Anushka, I hope. Now, so this is a crisis which is going through in Kerala as we speak. Now, because it directly falls under GS paper 3 diseases, you now need to know what is PAM, what is the pathogen, and what is the crisis in Kerala. Right. Now, when we talk about the Kerala perspective, PAM, primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, what happens is that it spreads through water and an amoeba. And most, you can say, standard place from which it will spread is through water bodies, be it wells, ponds, canals, swimming pools, resorts, theme park. Basically, it's water. Untreated water or not properly treated water is the whole concept here. Now, this infection, last year also there was a lot of news, but last year the news was quite scary. Brain-eating amoeba spreading. There has been a lot of sanity this time. They have not used this word brain-eating amoeba till this point, but it is the same brain-eating amoeba which they had mentioned last year. But last year, with the, you can say, the crisis did not spread to a point that the Kerala government had to invoke the Kerala Public Health Act of 2013, 2023 rather. This time they had to. Because it has gone out of hand. Now let's first understand what is PAM. PAM, or primary amoebic, what is called as meningoencephalitis, is caused by a certain amoeba which is called N. fowleri or Naegleria Algeri fowleri. You remember N. fowleri. Now this amoeba is a free, you can say, free existing, and it will be found in most of the freshwater lakes, ponds, rivers, and poorly maintained swimming pools. Meaning, in very poorly maintained swimming pools and in freshwater sources, you will find this amoeba for sure. Now, it mostly thrives over and lives over bacteria. But if it enters your body or my body, if it enters human body, it becomes a pathogen. And because it then uses the, you can say, tissues in our nose and in our eyes and in our face to then enter the brain, it is called brain-eating amoeba. Now, the spread is not person to person. You need to be infected directly with the amoeba itself. And mostly 18 days there is no treatment for this. There is no vaccine for this. You have to treat it like a parasite. But the idea is very simple. The mortality rate, you can say the death rate is very, very high. Now let's try to decode how this works. So N. fowleri is found in rivers, lakes, and swimming pools. If you take a dip, which is swimming, water sports, diving, whatever it may be, if you swim, there's a chance that this amoeba can enter through your nasal passage. And obviously, if you will swim, water may go into your nasal passage. From the nasal passage, it uses the tissues which are there in what is called as the olfactory bulb through your eye tissues in a way which is touching. It enters into the brain. Now, it first starts as a cyst, then becomes an amoeba, and then starts to, in a way, interfere and feed on the tissues which are in and around it, which is the brain. And that is why you will first have fever, then neck stiffness, confusion, cough, and then death. This is a very dangerous disease to get. It's a very dangerous disease to get because in most cases you will think it is common cold. By the time you realize it actually has any standard impact or proper impact, you will be dead at that point of time. Now, the government has now actually asked all resorts, hotels, water theme parks, and swimming training centers to chlorinate their water properly, and the chlorine water will be checked properly. But this only shows you one thing, which is that the same crisis happened last year. Nobody gave proper heed to it, and water bodies, be it ponds or be it any form of freshwater resource, if not properly maintained, this is a direct impact of water pollution. Now, as a UPSC aspirant, what should you remember? What is to be remembered in that regard? What you have to remember is, first, where is it affecting? Kerala. Second, Waterborne, water bodies. What is the name of the disease? PAM, based out of an amoeba. Further, freshwater resource, generally feeds on bacteria, enters the human body, becomes a pathogen, then spreads into the brain. What is to be not done? You should not swim and do water sports in untreated lakes or in lakes which have high level of, you can say, pollution. Thereafter, you should know there's no vaccine, there's no treatment for this per se, and 14 people have been infected in Kerala with this. Therefore, there's a chance this may spread further. That is why the government has intervened. You have to remember this word. If they are asking this in the examination, it's the same brain-eating bacteria, amoeba which was talked about last year, same one. The new headlines have not changed too much. Very high mortality. Clear, everyone? Sorted. You understand this concept also. You understand this is pure diseases GS paper 3. So for the prelims and the mains examination, this should be very, very significant and important for you. Yes, Avantika says, yes, sir, I understand it. Yes, sir, yes, sir. So till this point, what have we understood? Let's do a mini revision. Can we do a mini revision? Can we consolidate till this point before we go to the last two articles? Yes, sir. Very good. Okay. So we have understood the concept of 50% tariff, primary, secondary and tertiary impact, mitigation through diversification, through FTAs, through next generation reforms, through GST reform to keep consumption high, to have new routes and new directions, plus policy intervention. This is what you said. Then we have understood the concept of PAM, N for Valery, fresh water, no vaccine, and it is a amoeba which spreads in polluted waters. It is always there in certain levels in bacteria. Thereafter, it eats on bacteria, but if it enters your body, it becomes a pathogen in that regard. Right? Now, the third topic. What did we discuss? We discussed the concept of tariff. We discussed the Kerala health crisis. What is the third topic we discussed? Very good. Biotechnology, biomanufacturing, biofoundry, and the concept of bio-E3. If whatever is written on this slide makes sense, and specifically this, what is the meaning of this, then we are sorted. Then we are in the right space to move ahead. If anybody has any issue in any of the terms which is written here, we will then repeat it again. Anushka, see, NIPA and all is more because of more diasporic population and more, you can say, diasporic population incoming and outgoing into certain areas. That is one of the reasons. This is more specific to the environment, the ecosystem of Kerala itself, which is more based on freshwater resource, backwaters. So that is why. So there are two different things in that regard. Bio-E3 is a scheme of the government of India, where for economy, environment and manufacturing, it is trying to use biotechnology. Bio-E3. Again, Bio-E3 is not making sense. Okay, let's discuss Bio-E3 again. Bio-E3 is biotechnology for economy, environment and employment. It tries to use biomanufacturing so as to help the following sectors, be it chemicals, polymers, proteins, be it biotherapy, climate resilience, carbon capture or marine. It's a proper scheme which government of India is running so as to use the biofoundry concept and take it forward. Right? Yes, that is to them. So everybody is on the same page now. Bio-E3 should be done. Tropical nature also could be there. Yes, because of the marshy environment, that is also global linkages, Bio-E3. That was the only question. Biofoundry, Priyadarshini, is the concept of using biomanufacturing with automation at a large scale, where designing, construction and testing happens in the same space. Right? Okay. Now, there has been a lot of controversy brewing up for the past 24 or 48 hours over the appointment of Justice Alok Andre and Justice Vipul Pancholi, specifically Vipul Pancholi, as the judges of the Supreme Court. Now, the context is very simple and straightforward. The the President, constitutionally under Article 124, has elevated two judges, Alok Andre and Vipul Pancholi, to the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court will have its full strength of 34 judges. But when the collegium proceedings were checked, it was seen that one of the sitting and the only female judge, a female Supreme Court judge, B.V. Nagarthana, actually dissented against the elevation of Patna High Court Chief Justice Vipul Pancholi to the Supreme Court on Wednesday. So basically, the collegium proceedings are telling us that one judge out of the four, I'll tell you why four, one judge out of the four dissented, saying that there is a disproportionate representation of judges from a certain state. You don't need to know which state it is, you can guess it, but there is a lot which is going on in the background. First things first, Supreme Court has reached its highest, fullest capacity rather, which is 34 judges. But we need to understand the collegium system first to understand the context for this whole concept in that regard. It came in GS paper 2 also this time. Now, the collegium system is based on an evolution for what is called as first judge's case, second judge's case, and the third judge's case. Under Article 124, there's a word which is used, which is consultation. The President, in consultation with the Chief Justice of India, is going to appoint judges in the High Courts and the Supreme Court. Now, when this question came was that, is this consultation binding on the President? Or is this, does consultation means concurrence? In the first judge's case, the Supreme Court held that the CGI did not necessitate, or the concept of consultation does not equal to concurrence. Therefore, executive primacy was there. Meaning, if the President wants to appoint and the CGI does not agree, still the President will be able to appoint, because concurrence does not equal to exactly the concept of consent. Therefore, the idea was executive primacy is there. The President can appoint even when the CGI does not want. So the concept of concurrence is something very important. Binding concept is there. This was in 1981. Then in 1993, in what is called as the second judge's case, the Supreme Court changed its stance. Supreme Court said, this is for transfer, but Supreme Court said that the concurrence of the CGI is important, it is binding. Meaning, if there is a difference of opinion between the opinion of the CGI and the President, the opinion of the CGI would prevail. So the Chief Justice of India, if he gives a certain opinion to the President, that is binding on the President in that regard. So from non-binding to binding. So there is established that in event of disagreement between the President and the CGI, the latter's opinion would prevail. But the concept of a collegium of judges for appointment was introduced through the second judge's case, where it was said that the CGI should consult two senior-most judges of the Supreme Court or of the High Court, whichever it is, Supreme Court, before it appoints or elevates a judge from the High Court to the Supreme Court. Now this becomes a three-member body, CGI plus two senior-most judges, so as to appoint somebody as a Supreme Court judge. However, there was further evolution of this concept in 1998, where the collegium was further expanded and the collegium became CGI plus four senior-most judges, which is basically five-member body, CGI plus four other members of the Supreme Court are going to elevate a judge from the High Court to the Supreme Court. So what is the concept? Very simple, straightforward. First judge's case says the opinion of the Chief Justice of India is non-binding. What is called as executive primacy is there. Second judge's case says no, it is binding on the president. If there's difference of opinion, the CGI's opinion is going to prevail, and the concept of CGI plus 2 came through, which is in certain sources you will find CGI plus 1, but in most cases and in the best way form, it is CGI plus 2, which is 2 senior most judges. And in the third judge's case, it is going to become CGI plus 4, which is 5-member body. CGI and 4 other senior most judges of the Supreme Court are going to now appoint. Now, it is in this context that the appointment of Alok Andre and Vipul M. Pancholi have now come into question, because there was a dissenting judge out of the 4. There was one dissenting judge for Pancholi. In most cases, CGI does not elevate a judge. It's a tradition, not a law. It is not even in parliamentary order. In most cases, if even one judge is dissenting, the Supreme CGI does not elevate. Most cases. However, even though a sitting judge, and that too the only woman, she has dissented against the appointment, it has still happened. Now, what is the controversy here? The controversy comes from these 2 aspects which has been filed by the activists in that regard. The first is being argued that it is not clear what swayed the Supreme Court Collegium in recommending Pancholi when there was a dissenting judge in the Collegium itself. Further, he will also be the 3rd judge from Gujarat to be elevated to the Supreme Court from the Patna High Court. And this is equally problematic because he was 57th in the seniority list of High Court judges. Meaning, it's not that he's the first and the second. There were 56 other judges which could have been elevated, but he has been done out of turn 57th in seniority list to be elevated to Supreme Court. That too out of 3rd out of Gujarat. And thereafter, the idea is this gives disproportionate representation to Gujarat amongst any other state being represented in the Supreme Court. Now, previously, there has been a lot of accusation because of the Yashwant Verma case about accountability, about the concept of opaqueness. There was a concept that if dissenting judges were there within, the CGI did not appoint. Now, this creates another Pandora's box issue, which is, now there's a new set of issues which are being talked about, which is that if there was a dissenting judge, why did you appoint Pancholi? Second, you already had 2 judges from Gujarat. Why appoint the 3rd, giving disproportionate representation to the state of Gujarat within the Supreme Court itself? Third, if it was so important, if Pancholi is so important, he should have been the senior most amongst High Court judges also. No, he was 57th senior most amongst all High Court judges as of right now, and he was elevated randomly out of turn in that regard. And thereafter, if one judge has already dissented, what made the collegium still appoint him? And what are the political pressures, executive pressures? What is the politics of this appointment? Yes, the word is politicization. Now there's a lot of hue and cry. You will go into any news platform today. Most of the newspapers have not come today as it is. There is a lot of, you can say, chitter chatter going on right now on why is Gujarat getting more representation within the Supreme Court also. And if such a senior most Supreme Court justice is saying, I have a problem in the disproportionate representation and there is an issue in elevating him, when there is, she said that this is not based on seniority. This is not based on seniority. If Pancholi was first or second in seniority of all High Court judges, it would have made sense. This is a politically motivated? If it is politically motivated, then the independence of the judiciary comes into context. Now we have one more issue which is coming through. See, the executive pressure on the judiciary has always been there. There has been a lot of representation, a lot of PILs, lot of activist activities which have been going on, wherein now even retired judges are getting executive positions, Gogoi being in context. There's a lot of controversy brewing up, and the Supreme Court is not doing good service to itself by doing these things. Meaning, if your integrity is already questioned, if your understanding is already questioned, if you are being accused of being biased, if you've created an opaque system in which you basically appoint judges within yourself, and even when one of your colleagues is actually dissenting, then how can you use this CGI plus 3 and the dissenting, what we call as dissenting order was kept aside to appoint him? There are a lot of questions here, and there should be answers from the judiciary. You and me, we can just note down one more gray area which has emerged, and this is a very interesting thing. I don't think previously anybody's talked about the representation of states within Supreme Courts. It's a very big thing in the US to have judges from certain backgrounds and certain states in that regard. But this is a very interesting thing, that the representation of the judges within the Supreme Court and which state they come from has now become a point of contention. Right? You see, Nishant, marginalization of a woman judge is not the right way of saying it, because the gender of the judge does not really matter. It is a dissenting note which matters. Right? If you want to push it too far, sure. Challenges rise in the concept of the lack of weak and myopic. And see, NJAC is a ghost which is always quoted whenever these concepts come through. But as the Supreme Court struck it down, the Supreme Court will not allow the executives to play a role in the appointment in that regard. Right? See, Raja, Fiza, Nishant, all of you, you have to understand one thing. Is there a question mark on the integrity of judges as of right now? We speak yes. Is there a question on the way judges are appointed and transfers? Yes. Did Yashwant Verma reveal a certain side to the judiciary which everybody knew about but not talked about? Yes. Is there a lot of, you can say, a lot of consideration with regards to how should we look at the concept of judicial independence, judicial accountability? Should the collegium system be there? Should NJAC be brought back? Should executive control be there? See, what is an interesting point here is without executive control, there is politicization. We all know why Gujarat is being represented more. Now the question is, maybe there is no political angle to it. He's a very good judge. But the problem is, if you're creating seniority roles and you're not honoring them, then there's no point whatsoever to create seniority roles. Again, timing, context makes it a little bit problematic. That is a real problem. Right? Are we on the same page? Can I move to the last topic? Easy, SpaceX topic. Not something out of the box in that regard. Yes? Yes. 4 topics done. Biofoundry, concept of 50% tariff secondary, and we have done the concept of PAM, and we've now done this. I have given you the context. If you've gone to Salman sir's classes, this is pure polity with regards to appointment of judges. He will and should, and he does in class discuss all of these things in that regard. He may talk to you about this further when it comes the right time. Right? Okay. So everybody's remembering the topics. That is a good point. Within the same session, if you're able to revise with me, it's a very good and encouraging concept, because we can then revise multiple times and you're sorted. I hope this style is working for you. Now, the last topic which we have to discuss today is something which SpaceX has been trying. A very good example for a UPSC aspirant. In their 10th try, finally the Starship did 4 to 5 activities which is expected from it. So see, Falcon Heavy, its most, you can say, heaviest and most powerful rocket, in the past 9 times, it has either blown up within seconds, it has taken off but then blown up, but SpaceX did not give up. And in its 10th try, finally, it took off, it deployed mock satellites, and then came down, reusable rocket came down, and in an upright position went inside the Indian Ocean to then explode in the end. Basically, the flip and the what is called as gyrosensitive control to make it upright has now been successfully tested. And this is a very significant development because NASA is going to use this same rocket for another manned mission to Moon, and Elon Musk wants to take it to Mars. So the context is that the mega rocket ship Falcon Heavy SpaceX has finally completed its first ever deployment of test payload, and then it came down, splashed down in the Indian Ocean. It took off at 6:30 and it then came back, re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, and then was able to enter into the ocean in an upright position, which is very, very significant. Now, the next test, 11th test, is going to make sure that there is a launch pad or a pad on which the rocket can then successfully, you can say, use its ergonomics and use its gyronomic navigation to then stand upright. What SpaceX can do mostly with the Dragon and the Falcon generally, Falcon Heavy it was not able to do. It is very significant because now one of the most powerful rockets can take off, deploy, and come back to the surface of the Earth. It is now just about, you can say, landing it on a launching pad, settle down and basically switch off its engines and then be reused. This is a significant development. Again, something which we'll talk about further, but I hope this is finally sorted for you. Now, before we end the session, let's do one thing. Let's do a stock taking and let's revise what we have to do. First, 50% tariff, primary no, secondary and tertiary is going to be there. Diversification, policy intervention, the concept of next generation reform, GST reform is going to help. First topic, this is what we discussed, right? Second topic we discussed was what is called as biotechnology. What is biomanufacturing? Biotechnology is use of living organisms or living systems or biological systems to produce new products. Biomanufacturing is to do it on a large scale, and biofoundry is to do it under the concept of what is called as automation, and it becomes an industrial setup where testing, construction and design also happens. We have also discussed what is called as Bio E3, which is biotechnology for employment, economy and the concept of environment. Then further we discuss PAM, which is a disease, primary immunogenic, what is called as meningoencephalitis. This happens through freshwater amoeba, brain-eating amoeba as it is called. No real vaccine, spreads through untreated public water and what is called as polluted freshwater resources. Then we discuss the concept of what is called as judges appointment. 2 judges have been appointed to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has reached its highest capacity, fullest capacity of 34. However, the third judge's cases gives you the concept of CGI plus 4, and within that 4, one judge has dissented. First judge's case said executive primacy, second judge's case said that it should be CGI plus 2, and third judge's case said it is CGI plus 4. Collegium system comes up here. And last but not the least, SpaceX has been able to what is called as test its very heaviest N Fowler. Very good. N Fowler, Fowleri, whatever it is. Sorted, everyone. 5 topics. Tomorrow again I'll be there with more concrete news because the newspaper is going to be there. But I hope that this makeshift agreement or this makeshift structure of using the articles out of the Hindu website itself helped and gave you some context in that regard. Yes? Great. So thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow, same time, with at least 7 to 8 articles related to your UPSC preparation. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.